And what is goodie bag environmentalism, you might ask? Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Gita Marie and I have talked about sustainability specifically from the starting point of consumer action, zero waste living, and generally how we as individuals can navigate the green transition. Okay, we also talk a lot about legislation and political responsibility and corporate accountability. But in the DNA of the content I've always made about sustainability has been consumer action, yours and my perspective. Social media has definitely been an amplifier. It's been a tool to gather communities and to empower individuals to make changes in their own lives, which, as we know, when consumers change, the world changes. Even when it doesn't feel like it, that's what happens. But what those changes are, what they look like, and what we should do has, over the course of the last 10 years, changed quite a bit. I can testify to that myself because when I started my zero waste living, the things that I talked about were the most important are definitely not the things that I talk about today being the most important. So for today's video, I thought let's look at some of the things that when it comes to sustainability, I hope that we see more of in the future, and things that we could leave behind in 2016 for all I care. Let's talk about what we need to see more of and what we need to ditch. First of all, something that I wish that we would see more of, both in larger communities as well as in smaller ones, and it's sharing. Sharing is caring, y'all. The idea, the mentality that we as individuals, as individual households, as well as just people, should own things that we on average will only use like 12 minutes in our entire lifetime. Like power tools, like building equipment, like all kinds of gear and gadgets. Is there a specific reason as to why we all feel the need to buy these things individually, even though we're only going to use them in a few minutes, like over the course of our existence? Yes, there is a reason. It's called capitalism. Overconsumption. You as a company just earn more money if you can advertise to people, let them know that it's important that they buy this thing for themselves. What we should see instead, like we are being solution oriented. What I wish that we see more of instead is community-based sharing platforms and formats, ways where we can share the equipment, because not everyone needs their own lawnmower, not everyone needs their own power tools. We can share them, and I see this happening a lot and more frequently as well, which I'm so excited about, both for bigger communities in the city as well as smaller communities in the countryside. And we have been here before, you know, fashion, trends, and sustainability action, it's all circular. And we've come from a place where it's been much more normal to just share things, to go to your neighbor and ask if you can borrow their things because you don't have them. Why would you spend hundreds, if not thousands of euros on something that you're not really going to use? Instead, we could all pitch in and get these things for our community where we can just share them. I hope that we see more of this in the future, because this individualized idea that we need all these things for ourselves, because the convenience of just always having it on hand simply does not outweigh the impact of those materials and the cost of acquiring these materials. I hope to see more borrowing, sharing, renting in the future, which coincidentally I also actually think that we will. Something that we need to leave behind in 2016. This idea that everything needs to be homemade in order to be sustainable. Not everything needs to be homemade. Sure, there are many things that are extremely fun and beneficial where it makes sense to make it homemade. I have things that I know I can go down to a store and buy, but I just prefer to make it at home. Baked goods comes to mind here. But there are some things that we don't need to make at home. Stuff like sun protection or toothpaste. We don't need to make this stuff at home. And I came from a sustainability movement where the idea that if you could make it from home and it was natural, it would always be better than the stuff you could buy at the store. There are some things that we can make at home for sure, but it doesn't have to be everything. And just because it's homemade or natural doesn't necessarily mean that it's good for you. Arsenic is natural, so I don't know, man. What I want to see more of going forward is plant-based foods, but in a much more chill way. A general attitude towards plant-based proteins where it's just for everyone. You don't have to identify with a specific label of being vegan or vegetarian in order to enjoy these foods. You can just enjoy them. If we take some of the pressure and identity markers off this thing, it's going to be much more easy to try and experiment with it, build good associations with these types of dishes, which there are plenty of opportunity to do. It's just when we place ourselves into these boxes, we automatically, cheat ourselves out of a lot of really good experiences. So in the future, I hope we can have a more relaxed attitude towards plant-based proteins and that we can all enjoy them equally, which would not only be great for our health and our fiber intake, but also our planetary boundaries, which we are currently crossing in 7 out of 9 instances. So I would like to leave the demonization of materials in the past. I have definitely been a big part of this as well, and the zero waste movement in general. So the foundation of the zero waste movement is that plastic equals bad. And in many cases, plastic does equal bad, but that has nothing to do with the morality of the material. I mean, Okay. To some extent, because plastic is derived from fossil fuels and we really need to phase out fossil fuels. And because a lot of people are phasing out fossil fuels in favor of renewable energy, the fossil fuel industry is now banking on plastics and specifically disposable plastics as a more primary source of income. But what I don't want to see anymore is just having a conversation that revolves around plastic being bad. The material isn't bad in and of itself necessarily. It's the use of plastic that is the main problem, and we need to be smarter with how we use this material. Plastic is a really fantastic invention. We often use it in medical contexts, in building contexts. We use it for technology and innovation, and there are lots of places where it makes a lot of sense to use. But disposable plastic, single-use plastic, which on average is used for about 7 minutes before it's being discarded, that is a really big problem, and it's not going to go away. And it's a problem that we're not necessarily focusing a lot on right now because so many other things are also wrong. But we keep pushing this non-recyclable, non-biodegradable landfill mess in front of us, and at some point, it's just going to overflow. In many cases, it already is. But I don't think we solve those problems by just demonizing plastic as a whole. We need to tackle the use rather than the material origin. Future prediction, and something I just hope that we're gonna see more, it's more accessible public transportation. I've been a big advocate for low impact transportation for ever since I started this channel, basically. I love taking the train, but I think it is so unfortunate that the train is so much more expensive than flying or using other means of transportation. In many situations and for many consumers, it's kind of a lose-lose where you spend more money to be more inconvenienced. And that's not a very great way to sell a sustainable transition for the transport sector. But there are many solutions to this, and many of them are already coming. We're seeing more accessible train routes through Europe where different countries are working together to make these more convenient, and we are seeing them becoming cheaper as well in the future. And I just hope that we continue down this path and we don't let the aviation lobby take this over completely, because the amount of subsidies the aviation industry is getting compared to trains, astronomical. Of course, the reason why it's more expensive doesn't really change the fact that to consumers who are paying. So I hope we see more solutions to this problem in the future. What we desperately need to leave behind in 2016 is goodie bag environmentalism. And what is goodie bag environmentalism, you might ask? Now, I recently became aware of this term, not in context of environmentalism, but in context of feminism. But it works the same way. Goodie bag environmentalism refers to a very highly commercialized, sellable way of understanding sustainability. And it includes everything that you might be able to find in a goodie bag. It means that we put our main attention on things that can be bought, things we can purchase, and things that we in some way or another can consume as the foundation of our environmentalism or our understanding of sustainability. But obviously we cannot buy our way out of the climate crisis. The way we as consumers can make an impact is by buying less, is by not impulse buying, it's not by over consuming, it's by buying less things and only buying something that's necessary. It also often means that the most sustainable option is the thing you already own. And if someone is selling you sustainability as a product that they sell, well, and don't get me wrong, there are definitely products that have a smaller carbon footprint than others. There are definitely products that do not care about their waste and pollution at all. And there are products and brands that have better attitudes towards this and are more intentional, conscious, and are looking at ways of minimizing their impact overall. But our idea of what sustainability is from a consumer perspective shouldn't be dictated by brands with commercial interests. Going into zero waste back 10 years ago, this is definitely something that I saw and participated in all the time. Sustainable environmental living definitely meant that you had this cute aesthetic that was plastic free and there was green and beige. Love that. The matching mason jars, the right stainless steel lunchbox, the bamboo products, the specific on-trend water bottle, and you had all these products that sort of became the foundation of your eco actions. Your eco actions had something to do with what you bought. This is peak goodie bag environmentalism, because you can fit all these ideas and values into a goodie bag. We have done a lot of learning over the past 10 years. Give ourselves a round of applause, because that is something. What I want to see more of in the future is companies taking actual accountability for their products and the quality of their products. If you make something, if you produce a product, you need to have a specific plan on what can happen with it if it breaks. You need to offer repair services and guides. You need to offer spare parts, and you need to make designs that innately invite the user to repair it if it breaks. And that is unfortunately not a memo that all companies have gotten today. I want us to change the narrative. I want a broken product to lead back to the company that produced it. Instead of having the responsibility just stick with the consumer, because the consumer overall, is very dependent on the infrastructure they exist within, recycling opportunities, which often isn't even there, and the company has zero responsibility, even though they are the ones that created a product that wasn't meant to be repaired, but that was meant to be discarded. That responsibility needs to shift back to the companies. And luckily, we are seeing more and more legislation that's going down this path instead. It needs to be cheaper to order a spare part for your washing machine than to buy a whole new washing machine. And you know what I don't want to see more of? Carbon offsetting. Specifically, carbon offsetting, where this is the main climate action you or your company, your organization is doing. If you aren't doing anything yourselves, shut up about it. I don't want to see anyone being applauded for participating in carbon offsetting as their main sustainability premise. It's really nothing more than this vague, emission-focused real estate. I have a whole explainer video specifically about carbon offsetting and why it doesn't really hold up when we talk about it in context of climate solutions. And I would be largely very skeptical whenever someone mentions carbon offsetting as a main solution. What I want to see more of in the future: renewable energy in the grid. The world is largely dependent on oil, but that's sort of where we are. But it doesn't mean that we have to always be there. We are seeing corporations, companies, and governments phasing out fossil fuels to one extent or another, and the fossil fuel industry is shaking in their little trousers about it, which I absolutely love to see. There are many solutions that oppose fossil fuels. One of them is nuclear. I have a really old video about that, so I might do an update at some point. The bottom line here being that there is a massive category of alternatives to fossil fuels. There is wind, solar, hydro, there's nuclear and other kinds, and it's by no means a one-size-fits-all, and what makes sense in one region or country doesn't make sense elsewhere. So we also need to be smart. We also need to think about what pre-existing infrastructure and energy grid is available, because that also largely impacts what kind of energy provider or source that we can rely on. But the burning of fossil fuels is the #1 cause of climate change. So there's really no way around the fact that we need to phase this out if we, at any point in time, want to reach a point where we do not keep adding to the pollution, where we just need to deal with the damage that is already done instead of constantly escalating. And don't get it twisted, this isn't about the world ending. This isn't about saving the planet. It's really about maintaining a certain quality of life for people on the planet. It's about saving ourselves from an incredibly unpredictable, unstable future. And lastly, what I think we need to leave behind in 2016 is any kind of obsessing over the tiniest fucking things. Not everyone can do the same when it comes to environmentalism and sustainability. We all have different means, we all have different needs and behaviors, and we all live different places. That mean that what we can do changes. It's not a one-size-fits-all. And obsessing over the tiniest small things instead of working on the big picture is really not helping anyone. It's not helping you. It's actually making you burn out as an environmentalist or someone who wants to get into that kind of work. And it's also not making the world a better place whatsoever. Focus on doing the best that we can every single day, even if that changes, which it will, because we're human and it's okay. Anyway, that is everything for this video. I hope that you liked it. Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you think is in and what you think is out for climate action in the future. Thank you so much for watching. Have an amazing day, and I will see you guys next time. Take really good care of yourselves. Until then, bye.